ladies and gents, welcome to what I think is the first ever VR AutoCAD architecture type design type tutorial video. Okay, you can watch this video on YouTube VR in an Oculus headset, Oculus Rift S, Quest 2, HTC Vive, HP Reverb, any headset that you have. As long as it has YouTube VR on it, you could watch this video in VR as well. If you don't have that, this should still look like a standard video to you, a 2D video. You might be able to drag it around. I haven't quite decided how this is going to look when I'm done. You know, this is the first time I'm ever trying to shoot two video sources at once, but we'll see how it goes, and hopefully you guys can drag the screen around and you know, I don't know, check out my studio or whatever, see both my screens and see my setup, and just kind of get the same tutorial with a more immersive experience. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm picking a random orthographic and isometric drawing here. This is an isometric model. It's a 3D model of, you know, whatever. An orthographic views here. This is the front view. This is the top view. This is the right view. Okay. And I'm looking at some measurements. I see that it's 7 wide total. It's 2.125, which is the same as 2 1/8. That's how deep it is. It's 2 inches tall. And then we've got a lot of other busy work in here. Okay, so we'll work on that as we go. So for you VR people, I'm going to move this over to my second screen so you guys can keep looking at it. Other people, I'll bring that back, you know, into the drawing as we need it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a line tool. Make sure that your F10 and F11 say that they are on, okay, because they need to be on for you to have a green line going to the right when I'm trying to draw a line. So basically, I clicked anywhere on the screen. Now I'm moving to the right. And I'm going to type 7, enter, okay? And then I'm going to go up 0.5. And the reason for the 0.5, I'll show you in a second. I'm going to go 7 to the left and 0.5 back down. So the reason for the 0.5 is because the shelf height right here is 0.5 of an inch. It goes in. We don't know quite how far, but we could do some math. 7 minus 3.5 is 654, 3.5. Okay, so if you go 3.5 and then go 1.5, you should end up with this top box part here. So we'll go 3.5 and then 1.5. Okay, so moving this back over to my other screen so everyone else can see it. We are gonna, I'm actually gonna get rid of this top line. Okay, now that we know that measurement, it doesn't really make sense to have that. I'm gonna go from here 3.5 to the right. 3.5. I'm sorry. It's 7 minus 3.5 is 3.5, but you got to divide that number by 2 because we got the left and the right side to do. So 3.5 divided by 2 is 1.5 plus 1/4, which is 1 3/4. So if we move to the right, 1.75, and then 1.5, 1.75, 1.5. Whoops. 1.5 should have gone up. Yep, there it goes. And close. Okay, so now we've got something like this. All right, now looking at this model again, or these views, this is the most complicated part of the drawing. Okay, trying to figure out this little part here. We do not know what this measurement is. We don't know how far this line tracks, and what I mean by how far it tracks is like not how long the angle is, but how far from left to right that actual measurement is. So we don't know that either. What we do know is how deep this notch is, and that it's centered over the middle, and that it's 0.375, which is 3/8 wide. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm also looking at this number, this 0.625, that's 5/8. From the bottom line to the bottom of this little cutout here is 5/8. So going back to my CAD, by the way, I'm using AutoCAD 2021. Couple differences between this 2020 and newer, and I'll explain that as I'm going. All right, but I'm going to do an offset here, and I'm going to go 5/8 off of the bottom line, and then I'm going to take a line off of the midpoint at the bottom. Make sure midpoint is turned on. You have to be OS enter. Make sure midpoint, endpoint, center, and intersection are all turned on. Those are the 4 big ones that I use. Okay, so I'm going to draw this, and I'm going to go straight up to the other midpoint up there. I can also trim the bottom part. I don't need that anymore. You guys remember, as I said before, that the notch here is 3/8 of an inch wide. So I have to measure half of that going left and half of that going right. Half of 3/8. Anytime you try to get half of a fraction, you double the bottom number. 3/8 becomes 3/16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a line here, and I'm actually going to get rid of this line. That was just to find where this line point ends right here. So that's, I call those dummy lines in all my other, you know, plans and videos that I do. Dummy line usually just gets erased. It's just there to show you something else, okay, or the size of something else or the position of something else. So line tool, if I go to the left 3/16, I could draw another line to the right 3/16, but then I'm going to have two lines when I'm really only supposed to have one, and I try not to get in the habit of doing that. I don't teach it that way either. So from this point, let's drag that to the right, and we're going to go another 3/16, and now we have one solid line that is 3/16 or 3/8 wide, okay? And then we can get rid of this one. Next number. 0.188 is how far up before it angles, and then we have a 90 degree, but it's split in half, which means that this one's going to be 45 and that one's going to be 45. Okay, so 0.188 is what we need to remember. Sometimes my keyboard doesn't work and I don't know why. All right, there we go. Wireless stuff, man. There's too much technology going on in here. Yeah, see, that just popped up for what I was trying to do 30 seconds before that. That's okay. All right, we're going up. 0.188. Come on. I wonder if the batteries are dying on my keyboard. Hold on one second, guys. This is where VR is really going to shine. You guys can see me change the batteries in my keyboard if you turn around and look at my ugly mug. All right, let's try that. All right, so line. Oh, I turned it off. Turn it back on. Line tool going up, 0.188. And now we're going to have this angle here, okay? This angle is going to be based off of a circle. So all angles are based off of a circle. To the right is always 0 degrees. Up is always 90 degrees. Left is always 180. Down is always 270. And back to the right is either 360 or 0, whatever you want to call it. If I need to have a line that is off of an up line 45 this way, that's 90 minus 45, which is basically just 45. So if I take my line tool and I click at the end of this line, I can do shift comma, which is an angle sign. It's like a less than sign, okay? 45, and hit enter. And that's going to track at 45 degrees, so I can draw that out, and I don't want to snap to anything else by accident, so I like to just draw that out a little bit too far, and then I'll trim it, okay? Now we can get rid of this line. The other one is going to be off of a vertical line 45 more than that, so 90 plus 45 equals angle 135, and you're going to draw that out and click. Now I'll trim the extra. All right, so we get something like this. All right, now I like to leave 1 inch space. Now we can't do our hidden and center lines yet because we don't have the other view drawn yet, or the other views I should say. But we're gonna do a 1 inch offset between the views, okay? I gotta pay attention to my battery life on my VR camera. By the way, I'm shooting this on a brand new Insta360 1R. It's a pretty cool camera. I definitely suggest you guys, checking it out if you're in the market for a 360 camera. You can also, it's modular, so you can put other attachments on it, like a GoPro type attachment, which is a 4K wide lens. You can also put a 1 inch sensor Leica camera on here, which is shooting at 5.7K, which is an incredible attachment. All right, so okay, offset 1, enter, going off of this line, the topmost point going up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this line, I'm going to grab the right of it, and I'm going to move across. This is where you definitely want to have F10 and F11 turned on, because I'm tracking on this polar line, but I'm also going to object snap track off of this corner, moving up until I get an intersection. And then I'll do the same thing this way, like that. Now I have a line that's 7. Now technically I could have just drawn a line like this, stretched this one out too far, trimmed off the end, and then now that I had that position, actually I probably would have trimmed off this side, but now I have this position. This is a dummy line. I would have drawn 7 across, and then you can erase that, whoops, and trim the bottom. All right, so we end up with something like this. But I don't need this one because I didn't even actually make that a specific size. I'm going to go back to my plan here, and I'm looking at, let's see, 2.125 is the height, and then it's going to come all the way across and down 2.125. All right, so back to my line tool. A lot of lines, a lot of offsets. 2.125, which is the same thing as typing 2 1/8. You're going to come across 7. You can also type numbers like this, 2, and. You use a minus sign every time you say and. 1/8. 2 and 1/8. Like so, okay? What kind of lines are we going to get here? Well, where this bends and where this bends is going to give you a hard line. And where this one bends is going to give you a hard line. And this bend, okay, every time you have a crease like that or a bend, you have to show that hard line. Now, I'm drawing these lines up, and that's going to make me have to trim them later, but you could also do the object snap tracking and polar with the with the intersection. If I go on this corner here, I can slide up on the green line, click when I get the intersection, and then draw up. You can do that as well. That saves you a step where you don't have to actually trim, okay? So now looking at the circles that are in here, those circles are, there's 2 of them. They're a diameter of 0.688, whatever that number is. And they're centered down the middle, and they are 2.62. Oh, by the way, we missed some lines here. This bends here, okay, and this bends here. So that's going to do the same thing. You're going to bring these up, and even though this is lower, this is higher, this is an angle, this is lower, that's an angle, this is higher, this is lower, it still is going to look flat because it's just a 2D drawing, okay? So you're taking it and you're squashing it down and making it 2D. So you get something like this, all right? Now I'm going to put a line down the midpoint. Midpoint to midpoint, this is a dummy line. I need this in order to get the circles, okay? The circles are from the center, from this blue line, which is the center of the entire drawing. I'm going to go, let's see, where's that number? 2.625, 2 5/8 to get to the center. 2 5/8. All right, so if I had another line going midpoint to midpoint, and sometimes it helps to change the colors of lines, and that's probably why they did it on this plan over here, so that you can understand, you know, the difference between the different lines. In this case, I'm probably going to change this one just to be like red or something. That way I know that this is a dummy line, and so is this one, that I will erase later on. Okay, so you get 2 lines like this. I can now offset 2 5/8. Left and right, and you can see I now have a plus where I'm going to put 2 diameter circles right at the midpoint. Now when I click this down here, I went to diameter, but if you did by chance go to radius, you could still do that. You just have to go down here and hit diameter first, and then you can do your, what are they, 0.0688. That is not correct. Let's try that again. Diameter. They are 0.688. Whoops. All right, and then I'll do the same thing over here. Make sure you hit diameter, 0.688. Now my dummy lines go away, and the top view is done. There are no hidden and center lines in the top view, okay, because there's nothing going on in this drawing that you can't see or semi-understand from the top view. But in the front view, there are going to be some hidden lines and center lines because we can't tell that there are cutouts, that there are drill holes in the top here. We don't know that that's true because this would look like it's just square going back, okay? So what we have to do is we got to take some lines, and I'm going to go at the center here, and I'm going to slide left until I get that intersection and bring that straight down. And then I'm going to slide right on that green line and bring that straight down, and then I can trim twice, and I'm left with these. Now I also want to bring down the center. So if I go like this and I bring this down, that's going to be a center line. Okay, it's showing the center of a circle. The hidden lines show, you know, they're describing how wide is the circle, where is the left, where is the right. That's what we're showing. Okay, so now these 3 are exactly the same on the right side. So if I do MI enter, I can mirror that over the mid of the entire drawing. That's a mirror tool. Do you want to erase the source? Do I want to erase these? No. So I leave those alone, okay? So now we're not ready to change the line types yet, but we do have those set up, and we'll be ready to go in a couple minutes, okay? So right view, okay? Offset 1 inch. 1 inch. We're going to go off of this, and that's going to give us a position of the bottom left corner. The depth of the drawing, like we said before, from here to here is 2.125, which is 2 1/8. And then it goes up to total. It goes back 2.125, and then it closes. Now, before it closes, pay attention. I've got a small line here that I don't want there in a couple minutes. I will not draw it to here. That's going to give me 2 lines that look like one. I want to draw it to here, and then I want to do a blue box over top of that small line to get that line out of there and hit delete. All right, so we end up with something like this. Now, this is a step. It's a step up. There's a big crease here, or a bend. That means that I have to show that here. Okay. We also have to describe all of this. This would just look like it was just straight up over, but there's a big notch missing, or a big piece cut out at the top. So we have to describe that in that view. Where does it bend? How deep does it go? Well, the depth of this is all the way down here. So if I bring that all the way across, that's going to give me one hidden line. And then if I bring this one across, that's going to give me another hidden line. And then we should also have some hidden lines for, let's see, if you go like this, okay, and then you go like this at angle 45, I just want to explain why this happens, why this is the way that it is. So this one and this one, they actually flip over this 45, and that tells you where the position of them are in the next view. Something like that, okay? So that's the way to do that, or you got to figure out what this measurement is, how big the circle is, and what this measurement is. And that's going to give you 1, 2, 3, and you could use the offsets to do that. But understand that this is actually what it's doing. You're technically taking this piece here, and you're flipping it to the top part, okay, and you're just lining them up top to bottom like that, all right? But rather than moving it, we're actually just flipping it over a 45-degree line, all right? So now I can get rid of these, minus that one, and I can get rid of that one. All right, now how tall or how wide are they going to go, okay? So those circles, those drill holes only go through this top surface, which means that it should only be a 1/2 inch. So this should technically end at the 1/2 inch line, which is right there. We're also going to have a line right here to show the center of those circles. There are 2 of them. There's one here and one here. But since they are behind each other, you would only show it once. Okay? All right, so let's change some line types here, and then our views are done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to line type, which is right here. You'll see that I don't have anything populated yet. I'll go to other, and then I'll go to load. And I'm going to load 2 line types. I'm going to do the center line, which is center to 0.5x. That's the one that I find that works out best for the size of drawings that we do. Load again and find hidden to 0.5x. And then hit OK. I'm just thinking in the back of my head how easy this 3D model is going to be. It's actually only going to take us a couple minutes. All right. So anyways, okay, so we've got let's see, 1, 2 are going to be, 3 are going to be center lines. So you change them like that. Now, we can't really see these center lines because of the scale, but I am going to bring these up by 1/4 of an inch and bring this down by 1/4 of an inch. That's just the way that I do my drawings. I leave my center lines a little bit longer than what I leave my hidden lines. That way they don't look the same. Now, before I change my scale to see those center lines, I'm actually going to do my hidden lines first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are hidden lines. Change this and go to hidden. Now you can see that those are dotted. If I go to LT scale and I type a different number, like let's say, I don't know, let's try, I always confuse which way I should go with this, bigger or smaller. I think you would go smaller. So let's try that again. Let's make it 0.5. Now you can see the center lines here. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. We also should probably put some line weights on this drawing. So let's select every line except for the hidden lines and center lines. And then these, we're just going to select everything. And then you go up here, and I like to put a 0.7 millimeter on there. If you're not seeing that stuff, that's because your line weight toggle is not turned on. That's down here, show hide line weights. looks like 3 lines going across with 3 thicker lines on the left side. Turn that on, you'll see your line weights. All right, so this part's done. Okay, now what I'm gonna do, let's just pretend this was one file. I would do a save as, and I would save it as whatever, and then I would actually do, I would save it as, you know, orthographic views. Then I would do a save as and save it as orthographic or isometric view. You know, we're going to do the 3D model, and we'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that, and we'll start with this. Remember, I already changed this to front, so that works out because we're actually on the front already and it's all drawn. All I have to do is select everything, type join. What that's going to do is it's going to convert all of those individual lines to be one polyline. So if I click on this, you'll see that it is one polyline now. I can go back to the top. I'm looking down at the model now. I can go to the bottom right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this little gear down here. I'm going to change that to 3D Basics, and I'm going to extrude. The depth of this model should be 2.125. So when I click on this and I go to extrude, 2.125. Doesn't matter if you go forward or backward. Okay, negative number sends it back, positive number sends it forward. Now all we got to do is the circles. We got to extrude the circles, and then we got to subtract them away. So if I go like this and I put this is definitely a dummy line. Okay, this line will get erased. The reason why I'm drawing it is because you can't offset a 3D model. So without that line, this is just a 3D model and it can't be offset. With that line, I can offset across that top surface. So offset, my measurement should be, let's see, it should be down the middle this way. So we're gonna have another dummy line going this way. But that measurement should be 2.625 off of the center. So we actually have to work this the other way. Let's think about this for a second. Is there a way to do it from the end? Oh, they're actually centered. Okay, here we go. So if I go midpoint to midpoint like this, now if I'm not getting this second midpoint, you could always go to, you can actually type MID enter and that'll force a midpoint. Okay, you can do that with anything. You can do END enter, CEN enter. You just type the first 3 letters of whatever it is that you're looking for, and it will stop looking for other things except for just that. Okay, so now I can do, don't let this confuse you. I'm going to orbit a little bit so you can see what I have. All right, I'm going to do a circle right at the center. I'm going to do a diameter circle, because if you remember, they are a diameter of 0.688. And then I'm actually going to go to the top view here. I'm going to erase these lines. I no longer need them. I'll take this circle, mirror, which is MI enter, or you can type out mirror, and I'm going to mirror this over the midpoint from midpoint to midpoint. Do I want to erase the source? No. Now I've got my circles. Those circles have to be extruded down. You have to create a 3D model within a 3D model. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a second. So now I can do 2 things. I can put this and just do like a negative 0.5, or I can say, hey, I want it to go down to this level down here. Click at that level, and you can see that the circles, which are now cylinders, are inside of my 3D model. Okay. Now changing 2D wireframe to conceptual to take a look at it, you see that it's still plugged in. There's something, you know, that material is still there. So going back to 2D wireframe, which is what you're on every time you're working on the 3D model, you would do the subtract tool. You'd click on what do you want to subtract from and hit enter. And then when you want to subtract 1, 2, you can do them both at the same time, enter. Now it looks the same on 2D wireframe, and a lot of times my students are like, oh, nothing changed, but it did. You just, you know, it's showing the same edges, but you have to go to conceptual or something else to see it, and you can see that that's cut all the way through. Okay, now let's say you're spinning this thing around and you're looking at it and you like it and it's all good. What you'll do is you'll go to hidden when you go to print this if you're one of my students, but you have to reset your view. You got to go back to top here, and you got to go to the bottom right corner of the cube. That's a perfect 45 degree, or I should say 30 degree isometric setup. Okay, we don't want to print it like this. We want to print it perfectly isometric. All right, you can also put line weights on this by going back to your drafting and annotation tools. .7s. If you're one of my students and you're in the classroom, okay, obviously we're virtual right now because of the pandemic, but if you are in the classroom and you're printing, you would actually print both of these documents. The first one would actually go inside of a title block. This second one is just on a blank piece of paper by itself. staple them together, and then you hand them in. All right. So listen, I appreciate you guys watching. Again, this was the first ever VR architecture AutoCAD tutorial, and I really hope this works out. We'll see what happens. But, you know, come back and watch the next one. All right. I'll see you guys later. Thanks a lot.